now, it's time for the Stain Game with your host, the one and only Justin Menezes. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. I don't know where you're listening or what time it is, but this is Justin with the Stain Game podcast, coming to you with the one and only Al Martins. I screwed up his name earlier, and he generously and kindly corrected me. And so Al Martins from Fence Armor, located in Burlington, Ontario, Canada. Al, welcome to the Stain Game. It is a pleasure to have you. Thank you for coming on.
Justin, it's a real privilege to be here with you. Yes, you are, I'm going to say, America renowned for being an accomplished staining company, and I'm really proud to be associated with you, for sure.
Well, we appreciate you not only doing what you do for those in the fencing contract world, but also for the staining world. For those of you who don't know what Fence Armor is, that's one of the things that we're going to ask Al to tell us a little bit about. But if you've been on social media, it's funny. I'll share a story with you. We were at the Staining University event in Canada, and one of the presenters asked to go on YouTube to show one of their videos that they had. And the first thing that popped up was a picture of Al in one of the videos that came up right away when we looked on YouTube. And so Al is very prominent on social media, and he does a fantastic job of promoting not only his business, but his products, as well as for fence owners, homeowners, a way to protect their investment with purchasing and putting up a wooden fence or even vinyl fencing altogether. So Al, if you don't mind kind of introducing yourself, giving us a little history behind you, as well as Fence Armor itself and how it came out to be.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Justin. You know, you mentioned the last name Martins, and for a little historical reference, if you see the last name spelled without an S, it's typically Dutch. If you see it with an S, it's typically Portuguese. And if you see it with a Z, then it's typically Spanish. And you'll see also Martino with an O, and it's often Italian. So it's kind of interesting how one letter can differentiate you by what region you belong in on Earth and where it ends up. But anyway, little history lesson on names. As far as history lesson on Fence Armor and how it got started and where I fit in the picture, years ago, back in the early 2000s, 2007, 2008, I started to get frustrated with my landscapers. They kept on coming out, and I had a new cedar fence at the time, and they just somehow seemed to find a post every time they went around the fence. And yes, I like a nice groomed lawn, and if you like a nice groomed lawn, you're going to need to use trimmers to get around the fence. And you'll notice you'll never see a trimmer commercial going on a fence. Mm-hmm. Next time you look at a commercial for trimmers, they're going to see them. They go around the rocks, they go around concrete, they go around hardscapes, but you'll never see them touch a fence. Mm-hmm. There's a reason for that, because fences and weed whackers don't do well together.
Yeah.
And getting frustrated with them, I fired 3 of them, and they all had the same thing, and they all said the same thing: there's nothing we can do. And that's when my engineering mind came into play, and I said, well, there will be a solution, because this can't be the only consumer in the world that has this problem. So I talked to my business partner and I, Louise, and we went off and started looking at materials, aluminum, plastics, and we zeroed in on galvanized steel as the best solution to protect not only wood fences, but composite fences and vinyl fences, and basically every style of fence that is in existence today. Now, chain link doesn't really need a lot of help. It's metal is, but as soon as you get into plastic or wood or composite or vinyl, they all get beat up pretty badly by the weed whacker or the lawn trimmer, and even aluminum fences. They get and ornamental get hit pretty hard. We have lots of pictures of lawnmower decks and weed whackers destroying the bottom of those. So we have a clip-on edition for that series. But that's how it really started. And then, we ended up going on a show similar to Shark Tank, only the Canadian version here called Dragon's Den. We patented the product. We went on the show. We weren't really asking for a lot of money. We wanted the exposure. And once we hit that show, then Home Depot and Lowe's and the rest of these stores started saying, "Hey, look at this." You'll find us in the box stores, not in the store, but online, because it just makes more sense. One of the things that in my presentation to the dragons, we'll call them, or to the sharks, was that, we have 113 SKUs, and they couldn't understand that. Aren't fences fences? I said, yes, they are. But, if you went to a store and bought a 4x4, you'd probably end up with a 3.5 by 3.5 piece of wood. And they said, wow, they're ripping us off. I said, that's just the name of the game. And you remember years back, Menards was actually sued for that. And that's why if you go to the lumber store today, it'll just say 4x4. They won't have the inch mark anymore. Because in fact, 4x4 is just now a reference. It's a name. Same for 6x6 and so on and so forth. Anyway, I'm rambling and boring you, but ultimately we learned a lot about fencing, and we learned a lot about what to do, but that is the origins of fence armor. Wow.
I had no idea how popular or what a celebrity you are to be on the Dragon's Den. I've seen that show a few times, and it's a Canadian version of the American version. And that's pretty awesome that you were on there. And then what a way to share your product, because I don't know what the audience level is in Canada, but I'm sure you could probably get at least 1 million viewers who are watching the show on a typical regular basis. So just to get that type of audience is phenomenal.
Well, it was big. It was big. Not only was it big, it was the season finale. And it was the first time they've ever done a battle episode.
Oh, wow.
I didn't even know there was a competitor. But there was a company called D, like in the letter D, -fence. Who knew? Didn't know they existed. But they basically created, if you can imagine, a Frisbee with a cutout for the post. And, the problem is it didn't work for existing fences. But if it was a brand new fence, you would slide this Frisbee, as it were, and it sat on the ground like an umbrella.
Okay.
So it didn't help against weed whackers, but in theory it would help for rot, and it doesn't help for rot.
Yeah.
But anyway, we battled it out, and we had I brought out a weed whacker and a post and did the sampling and the rest of that, and I ended up beating that competitor. The Dragons voted on who they wanted to see the full presentation, and then once I won that battle, then I could present to the Dragons.
Well, so that is fantastic. And then today, now we have what everybody knows as fence armor. Knowing to have been able to meet you and spend some time talking to you, and also Luis, I have no doubt in my mind when you said that there was a battle how that battle was going to be. When we sat and listened to Al and Luis have an open conversation amongst each other, and how they would kind of bounce, like for the dinner, for an example, you were bouncing one idea for dinner, and Luis would take it and he would, kind of analyze it and bounce it back to you. And it was almost like a tennis game that you guys were playing. And I was explaining to my wife, she's like, "So what's Al like?" And I was like, "Well, he's a very intelligent man." And I'm not saying that because we're on this podcast now, but he's an intelligent man. He's created this awesome product. He's surrounded himself with the staff that I met that I thought was phenomenal. Very kind, very respectful, very engaging. Whether it was the office manager, whether it was the social media staff, every single person that we interacted with, or that I interacted with, was very hospitable. They just made me feel like I live back in Canada. I just feel like I'm back home and I never left. It was just so welcoming. But yeah, and watching the two of you, I was just amazed. You'd throw out one idea and he was kind of like in a tennis court. He'd receive it, measure it up, pop it back to you. And so, yeah, and again, like I just think about the opportunity to present that to the public and to educate them or introduce to them, like, hey, we have a product that not only is going to work, but it's going to solve everybody's issue, like you mentioned, with landscaping, grass cutting, and especially the weed whacking of everyone's fence post, regardless if it's vinyl, if it's metal, whatever type of post it is. That's awesome. That is so cool. That is very cool.
Well, I'm glad you noticed that. I appreciate that. Yeah, Luigi and I have known each other for over 30 years, and we do have a great banter together. We have a lot of respect for each other, and appreciate that. And our people here are amazing. We have a great team, and thank you for noticing that too. They, the expert university that we hold here, it's I think it's second or third time, I believe. And it really is a great thing. I think the first one we had Caleb here. The second one was just ourselves. And the third one, it was wonderful to have you and Michael up here. It was brilliant. So, we happen to have this place here in Canada. Canada is a really, really small market, and our company is 100% American. We're actually based out of Florida. And as you know, I have my mom's beach up on the TV screen out here beside me. So yeah, we're Florida corporation, and we ship out of New York State typically, or sometimes out of Tennessee, out of Caleb's facility, and sometimes out of Indiana, out of Mr. Fence's facility.
Okay.
So yeah, we're really happy to be an American company, and yes, we do have a Canadian warehouse. And what's interesting being here in Canada is we're really focused on trying to be overtly fair. And what I mean by that is when you buy Expert Stain, if you go to the Expert Stain site or the restorative site, the average stain bucket for 5 gallon is $2.49 or $2.39 typically. Mm-hmm. And if you come to our site, it's still the same price. Mm-hmm. So Canadians really get an incredible deal because we pay for all the shipping to get up here. Mm-hmm. We pay for all the brokerage. We do all of that, and they still get to share in that same price. And I think that's, great for Caleb. Mm-hmm. But it's also great for the Canadian consumer being able to get that price the same way, because in most cases, if you see something online in the US and then you find it up here in Canada, it's at least 30% more, if not higher.
Oh yeah. That was one thing. I guess my wife and I are kind of weird about that. When we go to a different place, whether it's a different state, different country, we tend to look at grocery prices and kind of compare the prices. Obviously pounds versus kilos, there's going to be a little differential. But that was one of the things that I told my wife was when I was there so I use my American business card, and it would be interesting to see one, the difference in taxes, right? So I live in Omaha. We pay anywhere, depending on where you're at in Nebraska. If you're in Omaha, Lincoln, Plattsmouth, you could be 5.5 all the way up to 7%. And then being in Ontario, you look at the price and you go up to the cash register, and I would buy my three for $7.50. I think was the going rate at Petro Canada store.
Yeah.
And I'd get up to the cash register, and then after he rung it up, it would be almost $9. And I'm like, what happened to $3.50? And he's like, well, you're not from around here, obviously. Welcome to Canada, where we tax the hell out of you.
Yeah.
And then I would throw my credit card in there, and then it would give me an option of, you paid the almost $9 in Canadian, or you paid a little over six something in American. So still way. So we typically get, or I typically buy these 3 for $5 when they're on a good deal, or 4 for $8. And so to see it at about 6 something was something that I could go back and go like, yeah, we pay $5, but there you're going to be hit with a little bit more, and there's many factors to cause that price to be higher or lower, but things are they can be more expensive, and so that is a huge benefit that you're given, not just to the contractor but to the public itself, by keeping the prices fair and as low as you can keep them to make it competitive.
Yeah, I think so. Thank you for saying that. But it's true. We really go out of our way, because if a consumer went and bought it from direct here in Canada, that would be much higher, because they'd have to end up with their own brokerage, their own shipping, and all the rest of that stuff. So anyway, we like to make it accessible. It's a great product. We love the Expert product, and this is the stain game. So we do a lot for Caleb. We keep growing his sales up here. So we have the Canadian market, and we want that to continue to grow. And there is, currently no tariffs really on the stain. Just as we spoke about a little bit, there is pre-existing tariffs on solvents. And the great news, as Michael said, is there's barely any solvent at all.
Yeah.
So that makes that a non factor there in pricing for sure.
Yeah, and that was while attending and talking to some of the attendees, that was one of the things that a couple of individuals pointed out was, everybody hears about the tariff back and forth battle between Trump and the Canadian new prime minister. I don't remember his name.
Mark Carney.
Yep. Yeah, I was like, okay, I know what it is. My son's girlfriend goes to the University of Nebraska Kearney. And
okay.
And so that was one of the things. They're like, do you think the tariffs are gonna do, what's the effect of the tariffs on stain? What's the effect? I was like, look, man, just neither you nor I nor anybody in this room is gonna have any kind of pull or ability to sway one thing or the other. The best thing that you could do is continue living your life, keep moving forward, doing what's best for you and your family and your business, and let the politicians do what the politicians do. And when even if they implement tariffs today, it's going to take who knows how long before you actually see the bottom dollar actually affecting you because of haggling and negotiations and putting things through. It's not even worth dealing with. And like you mentioned, there's a pre-existing tariff that affects more of the solvent-based stuff than it does actual oil-based.
Yeah. We're anyway. You're right. Ultimately, there's not much we can do. The dance is going on. It's it'll continue. The one moves right, one moves left, and then it'll get sorted. And we'll. Yeah. In the meantime, we feed our families and go on. That's it's getting to be spring. People are excited. This is not it is April Fool's, but we happen to have this podcast on today. But Did you see our Facebook post?
I haven't. I left the house today at a little after 5, and I just got home shortly before we started doing this. It's been
Or
kind of
guy,
a chaotic day.
you haven't had the social media moment. We
Yeah.
we put out a social media post about transparent fence armor,
Hmm.
100% invisible. And that kind of goes back to an old Star Trek movie where Scotty went down to Earth. Remember, they're there to save the whales.
Oh,
And
yes. Yes.
he went into this plexiglass factory, and he gave him the formula for transparent aluminum. So you'll see this image of what looks to be an AI generated Scotty talking about transparent fence armor. So
Awesome.
that's our
I'll look
April
forward to
Fool.
seeing that.
Yeah, it was a funny little thing. It was Stephanie who thought of that, so I thought
Awesome.
that was good.
Well, that's cool. Yeah, there was so we kind of talked a little bit offline before we started recording, and my son who does our sales, he was talking to a fence owner today about washing and staining, and the conversation came up because like I mentioned to you, he and I had talked. I sent the picture basically that's directly behind you with the post that's damaged, and it's got the weed whacker. And he immediately was like bought on it. He's like, "This is like perfect, Dad. Where's this product been? And how do we push this?" And so today he met with a homeowner, and she wanted us to not just stain the fence, but to put a stain that would level out the damaged post. And and my son's like, and he was just kind of like taken for, he's like, "What do you mean, like level out?" And she's like, "Do you not have a stain? You say it's self-leveling. So as that stain runs down, will it start to level out where the wood is missing from being chewed up and beaten and cut?" And he's like, "Ma'am, there's no such thing as like self-leveling means that as we put it on, it'll eventually become even and work its way to where it's all uniform coming down. And then we backbrush everything to ensure that there's no uneven runs and drips and things like that." And so she was just caught in that, well, I want something that's going to fill that post in. And so he's kind of a sarcastic smartass sometimes. He probably takes it from me or his grandpa and so he looked at her, and he reaches into his pocket, and he pulls out his hand like he's got something in it, and he goes over to the post and he touches it, and she's like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "I'm trying to see if I can self-level it with this clear stain that I have." And she's like, "You have stain in your pocket?" And he's like, "No, you idiot. There's no such thing. Just like I cannot pull stain out of my pocket and put it on there and fix it." And then he began to proceed to tell her, about fence armor, and that you can get these brackets, is how he called it. And I don't know if that's the proper lingo, because you and I talked about we love the idea. We're excited to do it, and so we're
we call them
the baby
guards.
stage. Yeah,
Guards. Postcards.
Postcards. There you go.
Yeah.
And so he began to explain them to her that it's he pulled up your fence armor page, and he began to show her the little videos that are on there, that you put the bracket around it, the postcard on there. You screw it in, but you don't screw it all the way over, and then you connect the two and you tighten it in, and it eliminates the weed whacker from hitting it. And there's a certain time of warranty on there, and she seemed very interested, and she's supposed to talk to the hubby, throw some numbers around, and find out if they're going to go with us or the two other bids that they've already gotten. Do you see, or have you seen an increase in demand, or folks using the postcards compared to when you first started with the project?
Yeah, of course. It's a momentum. It's a snowball, and it's a push pull in the marketing side of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we need to have the consumer be aware of the product. And we also need to have fence builders, stain companies, and landscape companies be aware of the product.
Mm.
And oftentimes, it really depends on where you fall in the scale, right? If you are the landscaper, you're typically the villain.
Mm-hmm.
If you're the fence guy or the stain guy, you guys are the guys repairing the damage. One is either building a new fence because the old one failed, or is just building a new fence on a new property.
Mm.
And then the stain guy comes along after the new fence, or a pre-existing fence needs to be protected and revived, as it were, with new color and give it more curb appeal.
Mm-hmm.
So our biggest consumer bases are actually HOAs. And we have a whole catalog on HOAs and how they use fence armor. So we spend a lot of effort and money with them to let them, be aware that our product exists. Because obviously maintenance costs, from 20 to 40% of their maintenance costs goes to the property itself, the grounds of their properties.
Mm-hmm.
And you have landscapers who show up every week, sometimes every other day, depends how big and where you are in the state. If you're in Florida, obviously it's almost every day. California, probably.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of work that has to be done. And if you have on a budget that you have to replace the fences every 10 years, and instead of that, now you can change it to 20 or 30 years, you suddenly have a really attractive ROI.
Mm-hmm.
And the Fence Armor product line, our rot guards, our rot barrier, the post guards that we have, and of course the stain, all help the longevity of the fence.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to have a fence last for 20, 30 years, then you want it to look good, so you need to stain it. But you imagine, just as your son did very well, if you're staining a fence and you see all that damage at the bottom, instantly you have a solution to say, hey, Mr. Customer, we can see all the weed whacker damage you've had over the past few years. We are going to stain it with our leveling stain, and it's going to look great, but you're going to see the wounded area will be masked and sealed, which is great, which is the perfect time to put on the fence armor so that you're not going to get any more violation to your media on the post, whether it's vinyl, whether it's wood. In your case, it's always going to be wood, but now you can put that on. It will take away all of that wound because you won't see it anymore. Could be the 6-inch version or the 3-inch version, but now it's instantly protected and they won't see the damage that's underneath there. And the next time you guys come back, obviously you just wipe it off because Expert Stain, you don't have to remove the guards.
Mm-hmm.
But if you wanted to, you could, but you just wipe them down and you can stain right over them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and the stain will seep through behind that guard as it's, again, self-leveling, making its way through the gravity pull of pushing the stain down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, if you want to remove them, you can. If you were using a stain that wasn't as forgiving as Expert, or you were painting, or it was a deck, or whatever the case might be, just take off the guards and in the end, if you move and you want to take them with you, you can. It's not like that investment can stay with you for a long time.
Yeah. Well, and so we've been in business. This will be year 11. And we have noticed, especially this year, that more and more fences, like we have had more fence washing and staining requests this year than we have had ever in our 11 years of existence. And what we're finding is talking to builders as well as myself looking at it and other deck stainers here in our market is that people are becoming more pro protecting their investment instead of Oh, we just plan to be here 2 to 3 years, and then we're going to upgrade our house or eventually move. And so, like Christian was talking to me this morning, he's like, all the better to have these brackets or the the post protectors, because that's just another investment. Because we can go in there, like you mentioned, and stain it, and then 2 days later, here comes the landscaping company, and those posts look almost as beat up as they did before we stained it. And we can put a sealant on there with the oil stain, and it's going to protect that post. But as soon as those weed whackers come back, they're already chewing it up, and they're going to get the water damage from the sprinklers, from the rain, the natural weather that we get here in Nebraska or anywhere in the country.
Even the dogs.
Deteriorating again.
Yeah, even the dogs. Imagine an HOA which has signposts everywhere, or golf courses that have signposts for the tees and the rest of it. They're mailbox posts. Every time a dog goes by, burp, there's a little gift.
Yeah.
So if you conceal it with the stain, now the wound is protected, and you cover it with fence armor. It just makes 100% logical sense, and it gives you an opportunity to make a few $100s more per sale. And even in the slow times, in the early spring or the late fall, there's an opportunity to go back to your customers that you've stained over the years and say, hey, you know what? We've got a new product which is going to help your fence, and go from there.
Yeah. Like I said, when I heard you do as you just did right now, it comes flawless. The pitch is well created and well communicated. And then, like in my mind, as we pride ourselves in restoring and preserving your investment and keeping you from having to spend 12 to how many thousands of dollars it's going to cost you to replace your fence every. I heard a weird number the other day that here in Omaha, I think a fence typically lasts 5 to 7 years before they're looking at either replacing posts or the entire fence itself, because the cost of pulling out those posts that have been, 36 inches of concrete and 18-inch round pillars. By the time they pull 2 or 3 or 4, or how many, you might as well just redo the whole fence, because the cost behind it is not far off from just replacing the whole thing.
No, exactly. And I would say that you're depending if it's a 4x4 or a 6x6. Now, in your neck of the woods, is it mainly 4x4 or is it 6x6?
A lot of it's 4x4s.
Okay, so then you're right. 5 to 7 years, and maybe 7 to 10, depending on the treatment that they're using, and if it's southern yellow pine or cedar or whatever the species is, hemlock, they're going to vary a little bit. But ultimately, without a rot barrier and without fence armor above that, it's it could be 20 years. It could be a 25-year fence had those things been put in place.
Yeah. And then you're like here, and at least in the Omaha area, it used to be the 6x6 posts, and then they transitioned away from those into the 4x4. And I'm sure a lot of that had to do with supply and demand during COVID. And then I'm sure the cost also, to buy a 4x4 post and versus a 6x6. And then, I've noticed personally that the yellow treated / pressure treated pine, it's like a toss up sometimes. Customer calls you up, hey, we just had a new fence built. Do you know what kind of material they used? Oh, it's I believe it's pine. And then we get out there, and it's either dark yellow, kind of like the Pittsburgh Steelers color in the room here, or it's green, and then you'll find, like, we have a fence company that we work a lot with, Done Right Fencing, who he goes through the bundles, and he picks out all the green stuff and he throws it off to the side. All the real yellow stuff he throws off to the side. But that typical species of fence, they're saying 5 to 7 years. And if you get the cedar, you're going to get a little more longevity. But that also depends on, you know, how many days we have 50 to 60 mile per hour winds blowing against that fence. And if it's been chewed up at the bottom, it's no longer structurally sound because it's, like you mentioned, it's got a wound in it and it's compromised.
Yeah, and what happens, of course, is the moisture will enter through that wounded area, and then it travels down through the post. Then it enters into the concrete, and then it starts to freeze in the winter, and then it helps crack the concrete. And then on top of it, you get even more moisture, and before you know it, that's an accelerated process that didn't have to be there from the get-go. And this, our guards and barriers are not expensive. So I think to your point, it's really education. Most consumers still don't know about it. And I just got a call just as we were coming on the air from a contractor in Virginia, and she was saying that they're there at an HOA to do some hardscaping and some concrete work, but they were asked about the fences and their signs, if they had anything to protect them from the landscapers. And she ended up finding us and called us, and she's all set to go. She was just excited that there was actually a product that did that.
Yeah.
So it's just people don't know.
Yeah. Yep. Well, and that's what's exciting to us is, like you mentioned, nobody really knows about it here. Matt Warner knows about it. There's a few fence builders who know about the product, but consumers themselves, when we go out there, it's just another notch that we can put on our belt of why you would want us to come and take care of your property. We're going to use the best stain that there is out there to protect your wood, protect your infrastructure that you've spent a lot of money for. And then being able to offer these to our customers, we just see it as a win-win for everyone involved. As you mentioned, it's not that hard to do. It's not super time consuming. And when you go out there to stain, that's the plan, is to go out there, wash and stain it. You get it done, and once it's done, you throw the brackets on there, and that customer no longer has to worry about the weed whackers and the integrity of those posts, and eventually the actual integrity of the structure of their fence, or even their decks. Like we have, I talked to a deck builder today about the post protectors, and he mentioned, that's one of the things that we see a lot is if a post or deck is in the ground with the landscaping or the grass around there, they'll just chop it up and then eats away, and then they're replacing posts. And usually if they're going to replace a post like that, then it typically runs into infrastructure problems. How long has that post sagged, or how long has it gotten rotten where the deck is now leaning and it's no longer center, it's come away from the house. So yeah, it's just another tool to put in Stainer's toolbox to offer to their customers as an upgrade.
No, absolutely. In fact, there's a episode April Wilkerson has on her channel. She's does a lot of woodworking stuff, and one of the episodes was my house is falling down. And to your point, that this was a surround deck, 2-story deck around her property, and a lot of the bottoms of those posts, even they were 6x6s, were literally rotten, and from over the years of in position with weed whackers and lawn equipment and the rest of it, and nothing to prevent moisture from destroying it. And she went ahead and replaced them and put the rot barriers on and put fence armor on so that now they won't be affected. One of the things that I suggest for contractors is to bring a little storyboard. And, this is just a 20-inch piece of wood. But on here, we have, the rot barrier, and we have the fence armor. And then, of course, we have caps. And you'll notice it depends on what state you're in and who the fence contractor is. A lot of them leave the top of the post, as it were, exposed.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's no reason for that. None, because it's absurd. If you have a flat piece of wood, water is going to rest here. This is going to crack. It's going to, hold water. It's a straw.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's a very easy thing. Just put a cap on it. And it doesn't have to be our cap. Of course, we'd love it to be our cap. But you don't have to cut it flat with the top rail. You leave it, proud about a couple of inches, and then put a cap on it. And now you don't have the top of the wood cracking and checking as much as you would any other way. So anyway, those are some points, but a customer oftentimes would like to see if you bring that and present it, it gives a nice little story.
Yeah. And we love doing visuals. Like I said, Christian does our sales, and he does a fantastic job as a salesperson. And he's all about the brochures. Here's a sample piece of wood with, pecan, cedar. If those are the two colors you're looking at, here's what you're looking at. And we have anything from new to 2 to 3 year old to 5 to 7 to 10+ year old pieces of wood that we'll bring. So that when the customer looks at it, we give them as much information and visual information so that they can make the best decision instead of wondering, hey, you showed me a new piece of wood and my deck's 25 years old. Will it really look like that? No, it's not going to. It's going to look more like this.
Well, yeah, you can do that Tom Cruise thing with me, without me.
Without me.
Okay? Without me. These are your chances of survival. Yep. With me, without me. Just bring another one. You got a lot of these hanging around the house, around every property. So I always do that. It's always nice to give them the before and after on that scenario.
Yeah,
and I get it.
Yeah, and like you said, it touches everyone, because even if you have a vinyl fence, so maybe you're sitting there going, well, I don't have a wood fence, I have a vinyl fence. I don't know how many vinyl fences we look at, because we're there doing their wooden deck, and you look at the vinyl and they're just smashed to pieces again around the posts, because I hate to say the evil landscaper, but it is the landscaper who's coming out to cut grass, and they're just smacking the crap out of those posts.
Yeah, the lawnmower decks do a lot of damage. We did a thing in Indiana with Rocky Morton, I think. Forgot his company name, Rocky Mountain or Morton's Fencing. Anyway, similar idea. The lawnmower decks were, once the PVC gets cold, it if you hit it at the right angle, they start to fracture and crack. So they wanted fence armor. They specifically spec'd that out in the agreement before they started building the new fences, that they also wanted fence armor on all the previously built fences. And these were 48-inch. They were 4 foot out of the ground. Two or three rail. I can't remember. I think it was 2 rail fences. But to that end, once the crack is there, what was nice about the fence armor is they could put a pressure treated 2x4 inside the post, and then fasten the fence armor to it, and now cover the crack that was there with the white 5x5 fence armor guards. And from 10 feet away, you couldn't even see it. So it was a great way to repair a hole in a vinyl fence without having to pull it out of the ground and put another one in. It was a really slick way of doing that. So,
and cost effective too. Like you mentioned, you're not replacing, pulling, potentially damaging sections. That's really neat that you can even do that on the vinyl or the PVC fencing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so if as far as the post brackets, do they come in various colors to like your black? I know you demonstrated the one with the black. Do you have numerous colors that you offer for those?
Yeah, we have all kinds of colors. So we have, of course, the mill finish, which is just the bare galvanized, and then black is our most popular, and then we have white, of course, typically for white picket fences or white vinyl, and then we have clay, and we have the clay and almond again, typically for vinyl, but some people like that color. We have brown, kind of I'm going to say like a chocolate brown.
Okay.
For the wood fences, typically. Green, I'm going to that maybe like a forest green. I'm going to say kind of a deep, rich green grass color. So those are the primaries. And then, of course, we can make custom because we make them in the U.S. and Canada. We powder coat some of the stuff down in Florida and Boca. So if an HOA, for instance, had a special color, which that's happened before, we did a 22-mile project in Colorado, and they had their color.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, their color didn't even exist on the spectrum of our RAL colors, but we worked with the manufacturer to produce a custom color for them.
Awesome.
So, yes, we have a standard range of colors, but we can customize not only the color, but the size. So if you had a specific size that is, from rough hewn lumber that was made just for you, we can make that happen too.
Awesome. So lots of options, and you're not limited to, I like using big box stores as a negative example. You're not limited to, going to Home Depot or Lowe's and it's 3x3 doesn't work. Sorry. Sucks to be you. So lots of options. That's awesome.
No, you've got lots of options for sure, and HOAs like that ability. Contractors like that ability.
Yeah.
The rot barriers are adjusting to all kinds of different size of posts. The product, does even allow, because it slides into each other, it'll allow to fit into a rectangle. So if you had a condition where you have a 4x6 or 3.5 by 5.5 or a 3 by 3.5, because they slide in, you can now adjust the size in this perspective.
Yeah.
We also have a round edition for round posts. So there really aren't any posts we can't manage to cover. So if you had a play set, for instance, in the backyard, maybe you stained play sets before, you can now put fence armor around those, because there's a lot of rectangular sizes. A lot of those play sets sadly come from Asia, and they don't use standard lumber. So you can use fence armor to adjust, put it at an angle, and fix the corners. We have the uni, which is perfect for that. And we also have, demis, which in some cases, is for the power washers. They'll see a lot of homes that are, vinyl clad. So in the corners, there's a bead that runs down the corner. And that bead oftentimes at the bottom gets completely shattered from, lawn equipment. So now they can put a couple of demis in the corner, or maybe a shed, or whatever the case might be. Or even, that picture behind you with the pool doesn't have any grass around it. Correct. But on the corner of those steps, if there was grass there, it would be completely destroyed.
Yeah.
And putting a demi like that would cure that problem.
Yeah, so that picture, the concrete goes to where you can see it in the picture, but behind that picture, or behind the pool, if you look right where the pool itself starts, it's grass from there over. And what you just mentioned, it made me think, because he has stairs wrapped around the whole deck like that. And so there's 4 sets or 4 stairs all the way around that pool deck that they can go on and off into the yard, or onto the concrete to go inside. And yeah, that was one of the things that we noticed when we were there. Again, they were like, will the stain prevent this from happening? No, the only person who can prevent this from happening is the person using the weed whacker.
Yeah, exactly.
And he's like, well, that's me. And I'm like, well, then you can prevent this from happening. So stop beating your deck up. That's how you solve this problem. Or you now sit there and go, hey, remember that conversation we had a couple of years ago? I found something that will work for you. You can still be the weed whacking monster Now instead of hitting the cedar wood, you're going to hit the demis.
Well, that's it. And for the professionals who do this every day, landscapers, installing fence armor on their properties that they're doing also makes them faster. They don't have to slow down around the post that they're going to. They can, continue at the rate, because they may, try to be a little careful. But it's spinning at 7,500 RPM. It's a line. It's going to cut something. So now they it's something they can run right past and continue through the fence. So it makes their landscaping work much easier.
Yeah, there's a large landscaping company here called Greenleaf, and they do, you name it, they do it. They'll put concrete in, they'll do retaining walls to lawn mowing and weed eating, and they've gone from the traditional weed whacker string to a real fine chain that they now attach on there, and it works. One of the managers told me it's like 3 times faster to weed eat or to weed whack a typical job with that chain that they use, instead of the string and having to replace it and then respin it or re-pull it. And then, so now they use this, it's a real thin, almost like a necklace looking chain. And that thing will cut, whatever it gets in its way, little brush, branches, you name it. And of course I was talking to him, I was like, yeah, and it'll probably chop down a fence post if you're not careful. And he's like, well, over time, probably. But, and then I was talking to him and I was like, you guys should look into this fence armor company, and you're big enough to where it would be an awesome, again, tool for their toolbox to go out to a job site and say, hey, not only are we going to put in this beautiful retaining wall and outdoor living space, we're going to protect your fence posts by just spending a little bit of overhead and making their yard and being that landscaper who cares, instead of like, oh no, we're just going to chew the crap out of your posts.
Absolutely. And you know what, just to your point, even if the consumer says, I don't want to spend the extra few dollars. Mm-hmm. If they listen to your proposal and then they listen to your competitor's proposal and the competitor doesn't even mention it, it really goes to show that you're on top of your game. You understand the marketplace, you understand the technology that's out there, and you're interested in preventing what will happen. It's not maybe. If they're going to use lawn equipment around their property, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So even if they say no, they say, you know what, this guy knows his stuff. I'm going to go with him.
Yeah. Well, and as of last year, 65% of our business is repeat customers. Wow. And so it's easier said than done, but we like to look at our customers as building a friendship and a relationship beyond just, the staining guy. I wonder if the staining guy is still in business. It's more of like, hey, let me call Justin, or I'm going to tell my mom about Justin, or I'm going to tell the neighbor because he cares. We go out of, we always, had a couple of guys from Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and I told them, our motto is leave it better than we found it. So if that means we wash down the whole back of the house to make sure no wood fibers got up on windows or on the gutters, we wash down the house. It takes just a couple of minutes. Yep. But they appreciate it, because not only did we do what we said we did, but then we went a little above and beyond when we saw something when it's, let me quickly pressure wash their green patio landing that looks like garbage. I'll just treat it real quick, give it a quick wash, and they come home and they notice that, and they sit there and go, "Oh, you didn't charge me any money to do that. The last guy wanted $75 to do it, and he just threw it in." So we try to build relationships, and that's where Christian and I talked about that. This is another piece into strengthening that relationship, that we could, not everybody's going to take it, but if we don't offer it to them, they won't know. And then when we do get one that says, yeah, let's go ahead and do it, I want to try this, then we can continuously build our knowledge and our experience with those customers by offering it to them and showing them pictures of it done before and afters. Like Michael showed us the The picture
Yeah.
that he had of that fence beside one another with the post savers and the stain compared to the paint looking stain on the deck or on the fence.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. With the postcards on,
Mhm.
with me, without me. You know,
Yeah,
it's,
with me or without me. Yeah,
yeah,
I might have to steal that. I'll tell Christian. You know,
yeah,
pull up,
yeah.
pull up
That's
the
from
clip
that
of Tom
movie.
Cruise.
Yeah, I forget the name of the movie. It was really good.
Yeah.
Um,
So let's talk a little bit about the Staining University event that you just had there at your facility.
yeah. Well, what can I say? It was great. We had a great audience. You know, you can imagine 10% of what you would expect in an American audience. So if there's 200 down there, there's 20 over here. But we're certainly excited. We had new people, which was nice. People who haven't stained before, who are fence builders. One was I think a power washer. The other was a fence builder. The other was I think a house painter as well, in interior, but
Yeah.
also wanted to get into exterior work. And it was an opportunity to learn and be educated for free. It did take their time, so it's not really free. And it ended up being a beautiful day, so they could have been working
Yeah.
out there, but everybody, I think, realized that there was so much value in being with us and learning from all of you that they all thought it was a good use of their time and money.
Mhm. Well, I'll tell you, talking to Michael afterwards, we both agreed that, like you mentioned, it might have been a smaller group than what we may have in Nashville at the last Staining University event. But the questions and the engagement that both he and I had with the individuals there far surpassed what we've seen in other events. Uh, Lesser numbers, but the folks who were there were like committed. Like you mentioned, they took the time. There were others who were planning on coming, but as you mentioned, I loved how you started the event and thanking those who came, that did come for coming, because as you mentioned, it was a beautiful day. And the days leading up to that event were kind of cold and crappy.
Yep.
Uh, so in our industry, those kind of days are money days. It's dry. If you have a deck that you can stain, today we stained 2 decks and we washed 3 decks because it's supposed to rain all the rest of next week. So we kind of pushed the candle a little bit, burned it at both ends, because extended forecast does not look like it's going to be much staining the rest of the week. But yeah, each of those individuals, the gentleman from Niagara Falls, who's the house painter, talking to him, he mentioned, I go to paint and I'm like, well, that deck needs to be done, but I don't really know where to even start. And so he was coming there to put a tool in his toolbox for this upcoming year when someone does ask him, hey, do you stain fences or do you stain a deck? Yeah. I, went to this event, kind of got my hands wet, got a little bit of information, and now it's time to take a leap of faith and do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And then having the practical aspect, physically, pumping out the product for cleaning and using just a regular kind of power washer to, let people know they don't need 1,800 pounds per square inch of pressure on to turn their wood into dust.
Yeah. Yep.
Those experiences in practical use, I think really showed a lot. And even the pump up sprayers that maybe they don't hold fluid for more than a year at a time. Maybe the seals need to be changed, but
Yeah. But that's all practical, like you mentioned, because how many times do we go to a job?
Yeah.
Sprayer worked in your shop, garage, wherever you keep stuff. You do your little test run, put it in the truck, whatever vehicle you're using, and you get to the job site, and maybe the seal broke along the way. When you're filling it up with water, you don't realize the cracks in there. It's clogged. We had a sprayer that wouldn't spray regardless of how much cleaning we did. But those are the gentleman who had like a real strong French accent, who I think has the chemical store. He was like, if you had a different pump or
Yes.
whatever, and I remember Bam Bam told him, you can have whatever equipment you have. It's not, it doesn't mean that you won't get to a job site and
Mhm.
deal with the same things we're dealing with here. Here, we're just doing a demonstration, but in all reality, in real life, we don't control when our things are going to break or not function correctly. And this is a good opportunity to even teach that aspect of, not
Mhm.
working. Okay, where's the backup sprayer? That's why you bring a backup sprayer. Where's the pressure washer stopped working? Hey, we have this 18. I don't even know how many psis that Roby washer
Yeah,
that we
I
had
think I think
was.
it's I think it's 300, but
Mhm.
I think that's what it is on the third setting. Yeah.
Yeah, and it cleaned.
Yeah.
It could have cleaned a little bit more if we had higher psi, but for what we were doing, it got the job done, and it showed people that you don't need, a multi-$1,000 wash piece to do the cleaning. That you can get something that's reasonable for your budget and make it work until you can expand and scale to that next point.
Yeah, the barrier to entry isn't huge to become a stain company and to offer those services. The real barrier is, your desire and will to work,
Mhm.
and that is the barrier that most people struggle with, because they think they want to work, and then that is when they face real work, it starts to become the real barrier. But to enter into the business, you have some good brushes, you have um, the tools, the right stain, all of those things added together will allow you to grow a business. But
Mhm.
then that desire to do this every day, that's the part that many people have to work on.
Yeah, we did. A couple of years ago, I put out a post talking about you can start a staining business for less than $1,000,
Oh, there you
and folks were kind of on this side of the fence. You're nuts. This side of the fence, yeah, you could do that. But bare knuckles, simple, as you mentioned. If you're the work ethic has to be there. You know, you can't go to a job and snap your fingers like I Dream of Jeannie back in the 1960s or 70s.
go. Yeah,
And she cleans. Oh yeah, she wiggles her nose or what? And the house is
bewitched or
clean.
whatever. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
bewitched. You have to do the work, and that pool deck in the background there, all hand stained, lightly washed because obviously there's a big pool. They don't have a cover for their pool,
Mm,
and so we used maybe 800 psi to wash that thing,
okay.
and uh, I washed from within the pool. So took off
Oh,
my shirt,
warm?
talked to the guy.
Yeah.
He's a plumber, and so I
Okay.
was like, "Look, you don't want anything in there. I don't want anything getting in there. Is it all right if I hop into the pool?"
Yeah.
And then that way, I'm in the pool, and as I'm washing, I'm directing the water and the material away from the water.
Mhm.
And he was like, "Yeah, yeah, as long as you don't contaminate my pool with cleaner and debris, I'm all good." And we did put some plastic barrier on there to keep it from do our due diligence. But
Sure.
besides the washer, the chemicals, an extension pole that we buy at home any big box store that you can buy, and then like you mentioned, a good brush for specific oil stain, and that job was done. We didn't need
Nice.
sprayers, we didn't need special tools, and then sanding. We do
Yeah.
sand our decks and things, but very minimal entry requirements to get started.
Yeah. Well, and this particular picture you have behind you is really a classic situation where they're coming in and out with chlorine and other things. This is a customer you can go to every year,
Yep. Yep.
and even just in the high traffic areas, recover
Mhm.
those specific spots. So having that type of customer is ideal.
Yeah. Yep. Well, and education is everything. So when we originally gave him an estimate, he thought we were absolutely nuts to ask to do it every year and even do a maintenance coat. So he's like, you're trying to rip me off. The other deck guy was lower than you in price, and he said his stain is going to last 3 years. So don't worry about it. I found somebody else. This was April of 2022, or no, 2020, because we did him the first time we did him was in COVID. So 2019 didn't pick us because the other contractor gave him 3 years. 2020, he called us in March. I want you to do what you quoted me last time. Is the price going to be the same? And I told him, well, last time we talked, I'll still honor the price because it's still within a year. Because our estimates are good for a year, 12 calendar days instead of just well, it's 2025. No, it doesn't count anymore.
Yeah. 12
But I told him, we'll stain it. If you want it to last, we'll stain it spring. And if you put a maintenance coat in September, your deck will look new every single year, and the chlorine is not going to kill your finish. His wife hated it because she thought we were taking them on a run or on a ride. But by the time August came around, where the little ladder is and where the kids typically jump out to go dive off, there's a diving board on the other side of that ladder.
Okay.
They usually typically jump out on the other side. You could see where the chlorine had just eaten away at it.
Yep.
And so they were on board because we didn't exaggerate with the maintenance coatings. And then now every year we go out there twice a year to do it. Nice. He can afford it. And he wants his pool to look pretty as well as the deck, so that when he has his friends and family and whoever come over, he's got a beautiful area to present to his friends and family.
Yeah, no, brilliant. And it knowledge is everything. And, you said he was a plumber. Another tradesman can pick that out pretty damn quick.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what he and I now talk about is, his wife was the leading factor to why he didn't go with us the first time. Because as a plumber, he understands the importance of not allowing a bunch of hair to just continuously clog in your bathroom sink. And you can tell a man who's got really long hair or a female who has really long hair that, hey, that hair that you're taking off the cone and just, washing down the sink eventually is going to clog in there. And the plumber is going to charge us $1,000 to replace the pipe in there, the P pipe, and then spend a couple hours so that he's earning his wage, his business. Or you could do the maintenance, you unclog it, you gather the hair, put it in the trash instead of the sink or in the drain, and you do your things. And that's how he saw the deck staining is, what you're talking about. You come across as somebody who knows what they're talking about, and your steps make sense in maintaining what I want to keep, instead of not having it and not knowing if it's going to get that way or not get that way.
Yeah. Well,
so you mentioned the brush. It's a brush I love very much and using. I've tried Goliath. I've tried, I don't know how many different brushes. I like to try different things. And when you had mentioned your brush, I think a year ago over in Nashville, and then when I got my hands on it, I looked at it and I was like, oh man, this thing is huge. Oh man, this thing is, and I'm kind of a weirdo, I put the bristles facing upwards and I run my hand on it to kind of see how much give and take there is. And everything was just like, check, check, check. All right, time to put this baby to work. And then the first thing I noticed with your brush was, and I brought it up, was the fact that it doesn't just release stain when you dip it. You dip it, you pull it out, and it's not just gravity working. For some reason, it holds the stain, and you explained to me why, and I'm sure you'll do it again.
Sure.
And then when I put it on the deck floor, it now releases exactly what you want, and you're covering a board in each lap that you're going because it's 7 inches.
Yep.
You want to talk a little bit about the fence brush, or not the fence brush, but the
Yeah.
king? Is that what you call it, a king brush, or what's your name for it?
Well, we just call it the fence armor brush. It's
Okay.
a fence and deck brush. Yeah, it's basically 7 inches wide by 1.5 inches across, 7 inches long, 1.5 inches wide. And it's unique in the industry in that it is the only fence and deck brush of that size that actually has pig hair.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the pig hair, or bristle as they call it, that really is the star of the show. And that's what holds the stain. You just imagine, like when I had hair, when you're playing outside, your hair is getting oily. It's
Mm-hmm.
just going to get oily because it holds the oil. Hair is a natural product that holds oil, and the pig bristle is very well known for that. So typically they're quite expensive. We think ours is very reasonable for a brush of that size. It comes with a comb so you can actually clean it. And it comes with an adapter for 45 degrees for when you're doing a deck. And it comes with a handle so you can just work on it straight.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you are one of the people who put on a straight handle so you can, I guess, work above it. Is it work above?
We use it. So when we apply it on a floor, we use it just like a broom.
Oh.
Yeah, we just put the extension pole straight into it, and we're almost sweeping, I guess.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, and I think you even had I don't know if you still do it, but you had one that was fitted with a sprayer kind of on the pole, which was kind of a unique way of using the brush too.
Yeah. Mark Gage, and I'm probably pronouncing his last name wrong. He was the original Stainman pole inventor.
Okay.
And he reached out to me, or actually, I reached out to him because Arthur Ashe, who also has the dipless brush, he had a brush that he had sent me to try out with Caleb Stain, and it's made with polyester bristles, and it does not hold oil stain. Works fine with latex, acrylic, film forming. And so I had reached out to him, and I was like, look, your concept and your idea is good. You just need an oil brush. And if you can put an oil brush on there, it would work good. And he kept arguing with me that I don't know what I'm talking about, that he uses it when he stains decks. And I'm like, well, what are you using? I'm using Flood. I'm using Bear. I'm using, again, that's not a real oil stain.
Yeah.
And so Mark was watching our conversation back and forth on one of the staining groups. And he reached out to me in a private message, and he was like, hey, would you be willing to test one of my pieces of equipment if I send it to you? And if you like it, it costs this much. If you don't like it, send it back to me. No problems. And so he sent me, it's an adapter that you put onto your sprayer. So you would buy Greco, one of the longer heavy duty spray attachment wands. And then at the end of it, he had, and it's a very mechanically a simple idea. It's just two metal pieces of metal that clamp onto your pipe. And at the end, it has an adapter for your brush. And then with your brush, you have that angle adapter that you can put on there. So it works perfectly with that attachment that he has. Because that was one of the things that he and I talked about was if you have just a flat on brush, you're not really getting the benefit of the spray because you're now going to have to, after you spray it, you're going to have to brush it like we brush, like a broom. But with that adapter that you have, now that brush, instead of going straight across, is actually down because you have that angled adaptation piece. And so it fits really well with his extension to your sprayer because the spray head is spraying down because he has that swivel on there. And then your brush is already in that position to where after you spray, you're just back brushing. And for
Nice.
some folks like it, and some folks think it's a joke, and other people are like, you're complicating things. Just spray it and back brush it. Well,
Yeah.
some people like it, some people don't. But yeah, it works really well.
Well, I'm glad. No, that's super. And we also even just sell the adapters for a lot of guys who break their adapters or who needed them. But yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
and I can speak from my personal knowledge that the Fence Armor brush we've been using. I talked about it during the standing event. That if you care for it, like you mentioned, you provide the tools to be successful with your brush. You're not just selling a brush and then hope they frail it and they want a new one.
Yeah.
But yeah, you've got a nice brush in there that you can clean it out and keep those bristles intact instead of starting to spray like a wildcat. And it does do exactly what you said. It releases stain when it's supposed to. It holds stain when you want it to. And if you take good care of it, that brush will last you way longer than most typical brushes do.
Well, I appreciate that, and it's high praise from you who use it all the time, and we have guys who actually will buy 3 or 4 brushes and just save it per color, so they don't really have to be working on cleaning it up every time. So they'll just kind of sort of leave it in the chestnut or in the pecan or in the black and not worry about it.
Yeah, we have one brush, and I think we're on like 40. Well, after today, we're almost at 50 jobs with that one brush.
Nice.
Still, and it's a floor brush. So let me clarify: we don't use it on pickets. We don't use it on handrails. It is mainly so we use 2 brushes. We use the Fence Armor floor brush for floor standing, and then for fences. And then we use a 4-inch Sherwin-Williams Super Deck or the Master brush. There's a brand Master that we get at Menards, and Sherwin-Williams matched our Menards price, so we just now get them at Sherwin-Williams. But yeah, I think we're almost at 50 jobs using that same brush for decks, and we get done with it. We put it in the bucket. Like, we're pretty much done for this week for staining. So if I was to go out in the garage, you would see a larger 3-gallon bucket, and it just sits in there on its bristle, allowing whatever's in there to run out. And it to this day. So I'm trying to, there's between Edwin and I, we have a bet to see. I told him I think it'll reach 100 decks, and he's like, no, I'm going to go with 75. So we're almost halfway there to me, and we're a quarter of the way for him. The winner gets $100.
Ooh.
So yeah, I'm hoping that 100. But yeah, it's fantastic brush.
Well, I love it. That's nice to hear.
Yeah, great, and a great tool for your toolbox. Some people like them. Some people think they're too bulky. There's always going to be a criticism or someone who criticizes what you have or don't have. So.
Well, some people buy red tools, some people buy yellow tools, some people are blue tool people.
Yeah.
I just like to buy the tool that works.
Yeah.
I don't have to color code my tools. Mm-hmm. And I think the same is true here. You're an artist, you're a tradesman, and you'll use the tools that suit the project, and that, my dad, was always one who said you cannot compromise on tools, because compromising on your tools will affect your workmanship, and that's the last thing we want to do. Is our workmanship has to be top notch. I mean, your name is your honor, and if you're chinsing on a tool that you could spend, maybe you have to spend a little bit more, but that tool is going to last you longer. It's going to allow you to finish the job faster, and you look like a professional when you're on the site. If you start bringing out plastic handled brushes and that cost you $1 or $3. The people know that they go to the store too.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Well,
I
yeah,
agree.
and we all walk around with these computers in our pockets
Yeah,
or on our
yes,
sides
yes.
or whatever.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely. Yeah.
and if you tell a customer I'm using Expert Stain and Seal, and a bucket of stain for Expert Stain and Seal costs $400 because it's, this miraculous stain, all that customer has to do is hit the Siri.
Yep.
How much does a bucket of Expert Stain and Seal cost?
Yep.
And
Yep.
oh, mine's activated, and she'll come out and she'll, you can find Expert Stain and Seal on Real Good Stain for $279 or $249,
Yeah.
whatever the price is, right?
Yeah.
And now you just lost the credit of your customer because you lied to them. And if you're going to lie about the cost of your stain, what else are you going to lie to them about?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
There was a gentleman who, what did he say? For the price of that brush, I could buy X amount of brushes. And I countered him and I said, well, if I told you that I'm on 40 decks with the same brush and it looks like it's ready, like I said, I'm hoping 100. Yep. Edwin's guessing 75. So we are nowhere in 10 to 20s. We're reaching 3 figures.
Yeah.
And I told him, okay, it costs money for the brush. Yes, it does. But you are buying a brush. We'll throw out $70. Okay. For a brush. Well, that $70 that you're paying for that brush is, I think my volume really came up. That $70 I have I have surpassed what I would have spent if I was using a far lesser quality brush.
Yep.
Goliath, for an example, and no offense to Goliath, whoever makes Goliath brushes.
Yeah.
They were $40 a piece, I think, when I bought one a few years ago, and it lasted me 3 jobs.
Wow.
After the 3rd job, I think I even did a video of where I was using it, and it had lost its firmness in the bristle. So I think I made the comment to you, or I made the comment that's why I don't use Home Depot brushes, because of the way the bristle just kind of spits up.
Yeah.
I was on a deck and I did a video of the Goliath brush and how it was just flipping stain all over the place. I unscrewed it from my pole and I was like, out you go. Threw it out in the,
wow.
This was at a farm.
Yeah, I think I remember.
No one's around. I chucked it because I could not afford to be slowed down, right? Efficiency is everything, and quality. If I'm brushing and I'm splattering stain up, that stain's going somewhere.
Yeah.
If it's not going on the house, it could be going away from the rail, landing on concrete that the wind may have blown the tarps away from. And now I'm dealing with stain on the concrete, stain on glass, or wherever it might be. And so I made the comment to the gentleman. I was like, okay, spend $70. It's lasted me 40 plus jobs. In those 40 plus jobs, I probably would have bought 10 brushes by now.
There you go.
At $40 a piece, that's $400. Now you tell me which one is more valuable and worth buying. $400 worth of 10 brushes, or $70 for a brush that's still going strong. And that's where I stand.
I agree. If you've done 50 jobs, our brush is $49. So you're basically $1 a job. If you get to 100, it's 50 cents. And like you said, the quality of the finished result of the stain and how it looks. So it's not just that the brush is lasting you a long time, it's giving you a good finish and a good result on the job. Yeah, I appreciate that. No, that's awesome. I'm glad it's working out.
Yeah, and it's 7 inches long. Our boards are 5 6/8 or 5 3/4, whatever the board size is now. So if you're thinking about your staining time and efficiency, if you're using a 4-inch brush, you're going to go over that deck board twice, right? At a minimum. We talked there at the event how we like to thoroughly brush our stain into the wood. So we may hit that board 2 or 3 times. Now with this bigger brush, because it is 7 inches wide, you're not just covering in one swoosh. By the time you go back, it's again releasing stain when it's supposed to, and you're covering that board in one go instead of having to do multiple laps to cover your square footage that you typically use for application. So it makes your work efficient too.
Absolutely. And most deck boards are 5.5 inches. So that gives you a leeway on the lap. And as
Yeah.
you say, it gets down into the channel so that you get that protected too.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great brush. Al didn't ask me to say anything about it. You know,
I appreciate it.
again, if there's something that I have found that works good for us and that we want to share, why not share it? If the brush didn't work, I would have done what I told Arthur Ashe, who I'm still good friends with. Great idea. It's just not there. And with this brush, I didn't know about it, and I think it was Caleb that was like, "Hey, there's a brush coming out. You need to give this brush a try." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I'll try it out." And then, of course, it was the Fence Armor brush, and we still love using it, and we'll continue to use it.
Well, we like to over-engineer things. That's what we do. The other side of our business is all about engineering, and if we're going to bring something to the market, we want it to really work, and we're glad that we've got that reputation and name, and we're excited about the new things coming and working with giants like you in the business. It means a lot to us.
Well, again, I absolutely love a lot of this stuff. Everything I've come to learn about you and see how you do things, what you just said rings deep in me, because I don't see you as a half-ass effort type of person. When I was there, I grabbed one of those post caps, and what was unique to me, and I don't do a whole bunch of post caps, but what was unique to me was that it has notches or little clamps on the side. So when it fits on there, it snugly fits on there instead of having to screw it down, or we put caps on my house and I had to screw it down. Otherwise the wind would blow it all over the place. So, I mean, again, to testify that, you don't do things half effort,
No.
the caps themselves, the post brackets, the post saver, everything is done with quality and for longevity.
I appreciate that.
Anything you want to leave with us before we call it quits? I think we're at an hour and a half. And
wow.
So
I went fast, eh?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have any closing remarks or anything you want to leave with us? How to reach you, how to find your business?
Well, you can go to fencearmor.com, and certainly if you are a business, you can go to the dealer portal and register there, and we can get you signed up as a contractor. And for those who are just interested in the product and they want to show it on their website, we have an affiliate program that allows you to make money for nothing. Basically, it's just a page that talks about our products, and if people come to us from your site, you get to make a little extra money. So we've got a lot of different ways to kind of spread the word. And, we also like to volunteer if there's situations where if you're doing a volunteer project and that project could use Fence Armor, contact us. We love to certainly give back to veterans and those who have given so much to us. So if you're working on situations like that, give us a call. Let us see how we can help.
Awesome. And you also have a tree planting program or something?
Yeah,
of that
we
nature?
use One Tree Planted. So for those people who put Fence Armor on their projects and their rot barriers, we plant a tree for those customers. So yeah, that's also true.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really awesome. Well, Al, thank you so much for coming on and sharing a little bit about Fence Armor and about you and all that you're doing to help customers with protecting and keeping their investment in place instead of replacing it every 5 to 10 years. And also helping us as stainers, landscapers. Yeah, we kind of made you look a little on the bad side. But products there for you to utilize also, and to turn that leaf and become the good landscaper instead of the evil landscaper.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I truly appreciate you coming on, and I'm actually gonna. I have a note here to look up on YouTube or on the internet to see if I can find that episode where you were battling on the Dragon
Oh,
Slayers.
Yeah.
Be interesting
Dragon's
to see. And then, hey, this is the guy that I was just with in Canada. Look, he's famous. He's a celebrity on TV.
Den. Yeah,
I
what
should have
was
gotten
it?
your autograph.
It was season 11, episode 21. The last
11/21. All right.
I think that's what it is.
Yep. I'll look it up. I'll definitely watch it and see. Probably learn something new. But yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for coming on and appreciate you being here. For those of you watching, please go and follow Fence Armor. Give them a like. Check out Al's videos. He's all over the place if you search for him, and they've got great content. Like the page for the Staying Game podcast. Follow us if you'd like. Listen, do whatever you'd like. That's all we got for you tonight. Stay tuned for the next episode. Until then, have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Justin.